Could Connor Bedard be named the Blackhawks' 35th captain in franchise history ahead of this season?
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a quick reminder to everyone watching on YouTube right now to hit that like button, comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. It's the best way that you can show some support. It's 100% free as well, so it won't cost you anything, and it really does help me out as I'm currently on the climb to 2,000 subscribers. I would really like to accomplish that feat before things get underway for the Blackhawks this season, and possibly even before training camp rolls around in just over a month here. If you're tuning in through an audio platform, make sure to go and rate and review as well, especially if you enjoy what you're listening to on a daily basis. And last but certainly not least, got to let you all know today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and sign up today by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon to get daily boosts and bonuses all summer long. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. We got a lot of captaincy talk here on today's episode, and some of you may have seen this through my Blackhawks Twitter account at Talkin' Hockey. Make sure to go and follow that on X for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. I quote tweeted a post by the NHL Network a couple of days ago and shared a quick snippet of my thoughts on the matter. For those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, if you don't follow Talkin' Hockey on X, I highly recommend you do. But what I'm alluding to was the NHL Network posting a picture on Wednesday of Connor Bedard with a caption saying, Connor Bedard would become the youngest captain in NHL history if he's named ahead of this season. Should the Blackhawks give Bedard the C going into year two? And make sure to go and drop your thoughts on this matter down in the comment section down below. From what I've seen on X, feels like Blackhawks fans are a little bit torn over this topic of conversation. So I'm really interested to hear what all of you have to say on this matter. But I figured I would kind of expand my thoughts on today's episode here for segment one on this matter. And I will first say that, going into year two, we've seen notables like Jonathan Toews, of course, as well as Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid get the C around the same point in their respected careers. So it's not super far-fetched to think this could happen to Connor Bedard in the next month or so. And we know Bedard is absolutely the face of the franchise. He's hopefully going to be that for a long, long time here in Chicago. And it absolutely feels like he's going to get the C at some point in the future. But my feelings on this matter, though, Blackhawks fans, the first thing that just comes to mind, and I kind of vocalized this on X, was what's the rush? Is there any need for Connor Bedard to be the captain of the Blackhawks right here, right now? And to me, there just really isn't a need for that at this point in time. And while we did see Jonathan Toews, go on and captain at a young age, just as far as like a Bedard versus Toews comparable right now, at least in terms of how they handle themselves, I'm always impressed with how Connor Bedard handles the spotlight and all the media attention. And look, I'm not in the Blackhawks locker room, and I'm sure he's a good guy, loves to joke with all the fellas and whatnot. But it still feels like there's a little bit more to peel off of him in terms of him kind of expressing himself and being a little bit more vocal and outspoken. And again, I'm not in the locker room, so maybe he is already doing that, but it feels like, and again, this is natural for a 17, 18-year-old kid. He just turned 19 last month, to be a little bit shy. And it feels like Connor Bedard still has that in him a little bit, whereas Jonathan Toews, his mentality, the way that he went about his business, was very business-like and very professional from a young age. And Connor Bedard, I do think, shares a lot of those same tactics, but it just felt like for Jonathan Toews, it was a little bit more natural to give him the C at that stage of his career compared to where Connor Bedard is right here, right now, at least in my opinion. And while, Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, obviously it worked out well giving those two the C in their second years, I do wonder if things would have turned out differently whatsoever had they just waited another year to give them the C. Sure, things worked out perfectly now, but I don't think it really would have made much of a difference, again, in my opinion, had they just waited one more year to give McDavid or Crosby the C. It feels like more than likely things would have still transpired the way that we've seen them. And for Bedard, just being such a young 19-year-old, it just feels to me like it would be a little bit more unnecessary baggage for him to have to handle at this stage of his career. And we know he's already going to have to deal with that, and give him his flowers for how he handled the national spotlight and the hype around him. And that's never going to go away here in the city of Chicago, right? This is a city that's dying for a great sports team right now. I mean, the Cubs, the White Sox are just atrocious to watch in the MLB. We know how last season went for the Blackhawks and the Chicago Bears. Connor Bedard and Caleb Williams are the two most hyped athletes in Chicago and some of the most hyped athletes in their respected professional sporting leagues. And there's always going to be that buzz around Connor Bedard. That's never going to stop. It just feels like he doesn't need this right here, right now. What I go back to is it just doesn't feel like the most natural transition for the organization at this point. It just feels like it would be a little bit forced, in my opinion. And going back to knowing that there's a 99.9% chance that Connor Bedard is going to get the C at some point, I just don't see the pain or the loss in waiting another year, continuing to just let him mature, right? He's still such a young kid, continue to grow chemistry and relationships with all of his teammates, grow in the leadership areas as well, learn behind the respected veterans that are here, like a Nick Foligno, who I'll be talking about more in just a second. I don't really see an issue with waiting one or maybe even 2 more years at that to let this be a little bit more of a natural thing for Connor Bedard. And also, just considering the vibe of the entire organization. Yes, we know the Blackhawks, based on what Kyle Davidson has said, based on the moves they made this offseason, the signings, they want to be getting better this year. However, I still think they're going to preach patience throughout the organization, especially with these young guys. And they don't want to be rushing prospects onto the NHL scene until they know they're 100% ready. I feel like that's going to translate over into this matter in this situation right here, right now. Yes, they could give Connor Bedard the C, but it just feels like it would be a little bit rushed and it wouldn't, again, be natural. And that's why, to me, I feel like it's unlikely that Connor Bedard ultimately is going to wind up being named captain before the start of this season. I'm not going to rule it 100% out because crazier things have happened. And as I laid out earlier, right, like going into year 2, we've seen this happen in the past. We know he's the face of the franchise. It wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. However, I would be shocked to see an announcement of Bedard being named the 35th captain in franchise history at any time here in 2024. It just feels like it's at least 1 year too soon, in my opinion. But make sure to go and drop your thoughts on this topic down below in the comment section, whether you think Bedard should be named captain before the start of this season or not. Really interested what you all have to say on this topic. But there are my thoughts on whether we'll see Connor Bedard be named the next captain for the Chicago Blackhawks here this fall. Coming up in just a moment, I'll discuss whether Nick Foligno could wear the C at all during his Chicago Blackhawks tenure. But first, I got to talk to you all real quick about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. With all the parts you need at the prices you actually want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and to bring home that championship trophy. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S.-based customers. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a quick reminder again to please hit that like button, comment down below, and share your thoughts on the Blackhawks' current captain situation down below in the comment section. I also wanted to let you know to be sure to check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with our local experts from Locked On. Plus, we have national shows that cover every single league. So be sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and to subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 2, while Connor Bedard is the favorite to wear the C next for the Chicago Blackhawks, whenever that may be, I have seen a lot of fans suggest, both in the YouTube comment section and on X, that Nick Foligno could possibly be named captain after signing a 2-year extension with the Blackhawks during last season. And after having Foligno around, it didn't even take an entire year to fully grasp and understand what type of guy and what type of leader he is. He immediately came into the locker room and kind of became the de facto captain, even though there wasn't anyone wearing the C officially. It felt like we all knew that it was on Nick Foligno's shoulders. The de facto captain, the team dad, Connor Bedard's dad, he was excellent off of the ice. And I also think it's worth mentioning how good on the ice he was, not only in terms of like protecting Connor Bedard and the youngsters and acting like a captain out there, but the productivity. I mean, Nick Foligno was playing top line minutes along with Connor Bedard, and they had a lot of success with one another. And this is a guy who's 36 years old, usually in the last couple of years, especially, and for most of his career, had been playing in a bottom six grinder type of role, had a few offensive outbursts, but I certainly didn't expect the productivity that we saw out of Nick Foligno last year. So just as a whole, fully encompassed, his first year with the franchise was absolutely splendid. And then for him to go and double down on the organization, even though he's a guy who's going to turn 37 here in October, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup, right? Like, time is ticking for him to agree to double down on this Blackhawks organization and sign that extension to be fully in on what's going on here, and then to go and be like recruiting during free agency. I mean, he's making phone calls with TJ Brody and certain guys trying to really make this Blackhawks team better for this upcoming season. You can tell that Nick Foligno is just fully invested. And this is a guy who's been, in leadership roles all throughout his career, going back to his junior days with the Sudbury Wolves. He wore an A there. He also wore an A for the United States at the 2010 World Championship, was the captain for the Columbus Blue Jackets for over half a decade, and then in his first year in Chicago, wore an A on the ice, but we all know he was really the guy in charge of the team. And as a 17-year veteran, just the way that he commands himself, it's easy to tell that he's captain material and that this is something that is very natural to him and he enjoys, and he takes a lot of pride in, has a lot of respect for that position, man. I just love everything about Nick Foligno. Since he's come here and joined this organization, he's really embraced everything about the city and the franchise, and he didn't have to, right? I mean, this team was a pretty big dumpster fire last season, and knowing that he's only got a few shots left to win a cup, for him to push that to a side and really, really lock into this organization, man, he deserves a lot of credit, deserves a lot of respect. And because of that, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to see Nick Foligno be the next captain for the Chicago Blackhawks. My only question around Foligno wearing the C, as someone who's going to turn 37 in 2 months, even though he played great last year, and I think the Blackhawks, it is possible they show him a little sign of respect and courtesy for sticking around for the next couple of years, just because of his age. And look, he played great last year, but I think it's going to be hard for Nick Foligno to keep that type of productivity going as he's slowly starting to creep into his 40s. I mean this with no disrespect, and I could be wrong about this, but it feels like the end of the road is soon-ish in sight for Nick Foligno. Well, we could say he could play for another 3-4 years maximum, maybe. And I do wonder, just given that he is only signed on here for 2 years, and Jonathan Toews, as the last captain, had such a long and successful term and tenure, I do wonder if Kyle Davidson in this front office are just a little wary about dishing out the C to someone who's probably only going to be wearing it for 2 years, maybe 3 at the max, maybe because Foligno is so invested in the organization. When his 2-year contract expires, maybe they bring him back for 1 more year, regardless of what the years might look like. We know Foligno wouldn't be a long-term captain for the Blackhawks. And now maybe he could serve as a good filler and actually wear the C to show Connor Bedard how it's done. And that's why I will say I think it's more likely that Nick Foligno becomes a filler captain for the Blackhawks than Connor Bedard getting it in the fall. I think that's certainly more likely in my opinion. However, the most likely option I truly believe is that the Blackhawks aren't going to have a captain for the second consecutive season. There isn't really a need to make one right here, right now. And again, given that we know Connor Bedard is very, very likely going to get it at some point, Nick Foligno is only here for 2 more years, right? Like, there just doesn't, to me, seem to be a need for the Blackhawks to go and slap the C on someone when, regardless of whether Foligno's wearing it or not, just the type of guy he is, he's going to act as the captain regardless of whether the letter is a C or an A on his chest. He's going to be that de facto guy, and we all know Connor Bedard, again, 99% chance that he's going to be the next long-term captain of the Blackhawks, and I don't think they want to rush him into that and pour more weight onto his shoulders and more attention, more unnecessary baggage, as I alluded to it earlier. I just think, again, it's a situation for the Blackhawks to be patient, not rush themselves into anything. And I think it would be natural, the most natural option for the Blackhawks to just kind of let things pass for this upcoming season and maybe reassess things going into next year. But I will say, I think Nick Foligno getting the C is more likely than Connor Bedard getting it in the fall. We'll see how it all winds up transpiring, though, here in the next month or so. But be sure to let me know your thoughts on this matter down below in the comment section, whether you think Bedard should get it now, whether you think Foligno should get it now, or whether you agree with me in thinking that the Blackhawks should wait another year before ultimately making this decision. But those are my 2 cents on the matter. Coming up in just a moment, before I wrap things up, Blackhawks fans, I still have to discuss Dominic James, more captain talk, being named to the C for Minnesota Duluth for this upcoming season. But first, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. I love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs for the Stanley Cup have obviously come and gone, same with the NBA championship, baseball is the only sport that's really going on right now, and the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. However, FanDuel allows me to keep the sports going whenever I want, wherever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And for those of you who follow my personal account, quick plug, at Jack Bushman 2 on X, and you all know I am heavily invested in the golf scene. If you all want a fun, long shot pick, Ryan Moore, 220-1 as of this recording to win the Wyndham Championship. Throw $2-3 on it. That's all I got. The payout is nearly $800. I think it's a fun long shot that could possibly have a chance throughout a crazy weekend in Greensboro, North Carolina. Be sure to go and check out FanDuel.com/lockedon right now, because FanDuel's hooking up customers with a daily boost or bonus all summer long. That's right. There's something for everyone every single day all throughout the summer. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get daily boosts and bonuses all summer long. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you again to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. Now be sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast for your second listen, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NHL down in the description, or simply search on YouTube or wherever you may listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Segment 3, not only will we see Ryan Green serve as the captain for the Boston University Terriers during his junior season, but fellow Blackhawks 2022 draft pick Dominic James, who was, of course, selected in the 6th round, number 173 in that year's draft, has been named the captain of the University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs for this upcoming season. And this was actually something that got announced in early May. So I'm definitely late to the party here, and I'm sure there's some viewers or listeners who are already aware of this matter. Somehow I totally missed it though. And I actually didn't even notice it until shout out to @shy_prospects on X, also known as Wally, who does a phenomenal job keeping Blackhawks fans updated on what's going on with all of their prospects. I highly suggest you all go and follow @shy_prospects on X. But Wally was actually the one who pointed this out to me. He mentioned that both Ryan Green and Dominic James have been named captain for their respective clubs for this upcoming season. I knew about the Ryan Green matter, and I talked about that on an episode earlier on here in the week, but I wanted to be sure to share my thoughts about Dominic James wearing the C for the Bulldogs. It's his 4th year with Minnesota Duluth. Unfortunately, some of you may remember that James only got to play in 2 games during his junior season before undergoing season-ending surgery for an upper body injury. I actually don't know if James got a red shirt, if this is going to be his junior season, if he could come back for another year or whatnot. But regardless, had a very sound start to his collegiate career as an underclassman. He tallied 18 points, 6 goals, and 12 assists in 39 games as a true freshman. And then really had a nice uptick in his production, got up to 28 points, 10 goals, and 18 assists in 35 games during his sophomore campaign, mostly utilized as a middle 6 center for the Bulldogs. And then I really wanted to see him take a big leap after also getting really good experience playing for the United States at the 2022 World Juniors. Not huge productivity out of James there, but was used mostly as like a 4th line center or someone who was good at the faceoff dot, played a little bit on the penalty kill, only wound up tallying 1 assist in 5 games worth of action there. But again, really good experience for him there. I was hoping he was going to build off that in his junior campaign, but that was cut short, as I mentioned. But a big-time bounce-back opportunity here for James in his 4th year. Again, not sure if he's technically going to be a junior or a senior, but a big-time bounce-back opportunity for him. He's very likely going to be playing a top 6 role, I would think, assuming his rehab has gone well. And just considering he's an upperclassman and his experience, it feels natural for him, even though he's not like the biggest offensive threat. I wouldn't be surprised, knock on wood, if James returns healthy this year, that he could be pretty close to that point per game margin. I know it's likely he'll get off to a slow start considering it'll be a year removed from him for game action, but considering the speed and the pace that he plays at, man, that's really what put him on the radar, I think, for the World Juniors team, is because of the pace he plays with. And ultimately what I think, along with his versatility, a guy who can use his speed on the defensive side of things too, can play both the center and the wing position at this point. I think for being a 6th-round pick, because of the pace he plays with, I do think there's a realistic chance that Dominic James makes the NHL level. And I think, that's clearly a rarity for 6th-round selections. He's got some decent size to him too, at 6 foot, currently listed at only 170 pounds. However, I'm curious to see after he's been, off of the ice for an entire year, how kind of his training, his rehab, and how his strength has developed over the course of the last 365 days. I'd hope that he's coming in weighing a little bit more for this upcoming season. If he gets up to 185, 190 pounds, has a little bit more of a filled out and solid frame to him, yeah, considering his versatility and again, his pace, I think he could be a bottom 6 option for the Blackhawks one day down the road. And I think that's why Kyle Davidson selected him in the 6th round, likely after seeing his foot speed. We've seen that be a common theme for Davidson, not only in the later rounds, but all throughout his draft since taking over as general manager. So yeah, a really good opportunity, going to be really good experience for Dominic James, going to be looked up to in that locker room. Yeah, it's going to be some extra weight on his shoulders, but I think it's a good one. I think it's something that he's going to learn from. And I talk about this all the time. You can never have too many prospects in a captain role as they're kind of coming up to the pro ranks. We've seen that with so many guys throughout the years, Ethan Del Mastro, right? Nolan Allen, Colton Dock, so on and so forth. And now Ryan Green for Boston University. And Dominic James for the University of Minnesota Duluth. Two very intriguing teams always in college hockey. Going to be a lot of fun to watch. Both of them lead their respective clubs as things get underway here in just a couple of months. But that's going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. Everyone, as always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Please do me a huge favor. Go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks if you haven't done so already. It really does mean the world to me and makes all my hard work worth it. If you're tuning in through an audio platform and somehow haven't already followed, be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks. It's free wherever you may listen to your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be. If you want to check out my personal account on X, you can find me at Jack Bushman too. Go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account as well at Talkin' Hockey. That way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until next time, friends, everyone, be safe, enjoy your weekends, and I'll see you on Monday's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. Oh, I'm going to be bringing mail back Monday if I can this upcoming week. So make sure to go and jump in the comment section down below with your questions. You can email lockedonblackhawks@gmail.com, DM me on any one of my social accounts, or even hit up the community tab on the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.